Greetings, y'all. We're gonna be talking about the sign of Scorpio today and Scorpio singles. Just give me one moment. Sorry, I had to go recreate myself because that's exactly what Scorpios do, right? Scorpios are the transformative sign. Scorpios are the sign that creates, constantly creative and constantly creating, recreating themselves, right? So when we're thinking about a Scorpio, we're thinking about a sign that is ruled by Mars and it's also ruled by Pluto. And so when a sign ruled by these two very different planets comes together, we're seeing three different versions of a Scorpio. Now, I don't know if you've ever met a Scorpio, but chances are when you met them, they are not the same person from that first day that you met, right? Because a Scorpio can either be a scorpion, right? So they can be somewhat low vibrational. So scorpions find themselves to be loners, find themselves to be stubborn, extremely stubborn, judgmental, right? And somewhat controlling as well when we're thinking about scorpions. But then scorpions eventually start to put their personality concerns to the side, right? They start to allow some of their ego to fall away. And when they're allowing their ego to fall away and they really consider other people's emotions, right? They can be an eagle soaring high above, very high vibrational, meaning that they can be very much focused on the soul and soul-driven urges versus personality-driven urges, which is embodied by the scorpion. But in order for a scorpion to elevate themselves, sometimes there's parts of their personality that has to die. There are parts of their personality that has to transform. And then that's when a scorpion becomes the pheonix, right? The pheonix is the part of the personality or the part of the person that rises from the ashes of a habit that no longer serves a Scorpio, right? A personality trait that no longer works for Scorpio. And we're looking at that in relationships. And we're thinking about Scorpios being a highly sexual sign, so really mind-blowing sex with a Scorpio, right? But Scorpios either can be a loner or they have that intensive need for a committed partnership, right? So when I'm looking at Scorpio in Venus, I'm looking at a sign that is somewhat in detriment to Venus. So what does that mean, right? Venus is the planet of love, right? And it attracts love to it. It draws love in by its demeanor. Scorpio, being ruled by Pluto but also by Mars, is somewhat aggressive in its approach to love, especially when we're talking about Scorpio and Venus. So Scorpio and Venus goes out and makes the love happen, right? So that can be somewhat controlling, and it can be somewhat chaotic when you try to make someone love you and force love into a situation, right? So here we're looking at a sign that has to sacrifice a lot of their desires and needs when we're talking about Scorpio Venus, right? Sacrificing a lot and really giving up a lot for the sake of the relationship. And when you're doing that much sacrificing, sometimes there's a part of that personality that needs to be let go, that needs to be brushed off, right? And so moving on from Scorpio and Venus, we're looking at Scorpio in the fifth house. So fifth house, think creativity, children, and dating, right? So Scorpio in the fifth house often feels this urge, this rush of emotions, right? This wave of an internal world. Your internal world does not match your exterior, and this is for all Scorpios, really, right? There's could be these rage of emotions going on and on the inside, because you're such an introverted sign. You don't let that show on the outside. You have this very like strong exterior that not a lot of people get to see. Not a lot of people get to see that internal world and how you're really feeling. And so that's heightened here with Scorpio in the 5th house, particularly because you don't know how to express all that's going on the inside, right? So that might affect your creativity, right? You might have some creative blocks in terms of, if you're an artist, or in terms of if you want to do things differently than you have done them in the past. It's like, where do you get started, right? And then when we're talking about your partners and your children, Scorpio in the 5th house might not want to sacrifice. Scorpio in the 5th house might want to be alone and really delve into their loner side, because they don't want to sacrifice a part of their personality. They prefer to be in control. They prefer people to listen to them, because they feel the way they're seeing the world is correct, because of that super strong Scorpio eye for critique and sometimes judgment, right? And so in dating and partnerships with the 5th house, it's about how do you give of yourself? And some Scorpio 5th house might not want to do that. And then we're taking a look at a Scorpio in the 7th house. Okay, so Scorpio in the 7th house. This is someone that really, really wants a relationship, right? Because Scorpios feel comfortable. If that Scorpio is not a loner, they feel most comfortable in a relationship. And honestly, Scorpio loners probably feel comfortable in relationships as well, but they're not willing to do the sacrifice necessary for the relationship. But here we're seeing the opposite happen, right? With the Scorpio in the 7th house, we're seeing constant sacrifice for the relationship. Like constant, Scorpio 7th house might find that relationships are that transformative experience for the Scorpio, right? So the relationship forces them to grow, right? It forces them to rise to the levels of the pheonix in order to sacrifice for that greater 7th house need, which is the partnership, which is letting go of some issues of control, which is allowing the partnership to take reins here. And so with Scorpio 7th house, you just want to be mindful of being with a partner who can also grow and transform, or is worthy and deserving of that transformation from you as well. Or because Scorpio 7th house might have an issue leaving a partnership, right? Might have an issue leaving the wrong long-term partnership, because they've gone through so much transformative changes with that partner that brings in this deep emotional attachment to them, and they might feel out of place even being without a partner. And so you just have to be mindful about the partners that you're choosing. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the Symbolon cards and see what aspects of the Scorpio's past, right, is affecting their ability to find the best partnership for them. And so that's the energy that's being shuffled into these cards here. And I think it's interesting because if anyone is born under Scorpio with Scorpio Venus, right? Thinking about Scorpio Venus, there has to be some kind of past life issue going on there, and an issue where you might not have taken love seriously, an issue where you had a lot of superficial love, or maybe you had a lot of string of broken hearts in a past life. That could even be your past, right? So really going through the karmic energy of that, but that's something beautiful about Scorpios. Scorpios are the transformative sign, so you can live out your karma, especially your relationship karma in this lifetime, and rise to the pheonix, just allowing a part of your personality to die so that you can rise above the ashes and even really soar like the eagle and be more spirit and soul oriented than personality oriented. Okay, so we are calling on the ancestors and spirit guides that serve the highest good of all to assist Scorpios in understanding what do they need, or what information do they need, what guidance do they need to have and maintain the best relationship for them. Okay, we're gonna knock for clarity, split this into 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, quite interesting here. This is beautiful, actually. All right, y'all. Take a look at what we got going on right here. So here we have the Fool, right, jumping over a large spacing, right, and going to the other side, feeling somewhat confident here, right, that they can reach the other side. And this card for the Fool, which would have been a tarot card, Fool, right, is ruled by Aquarius and Sagittarius, which makes so much sense. You know, that freedom, that risk taking that comes with Sagittarius and Aquarius, right, that Jupiter Uranus energy. Here we have we have Libra. Libra making sense with the we have a couple headed towards this palace, this home. And we also have Sagittarius again. Interesting, right? And then we have here Leo and Sagittarius, right? And we have a sage in the middle. Very interesting, Scorpio. Pulled a lot of Sagittarius energy, which is, obviously the next sign in the zodiac after Scorpio. And so here, when we're looking at the past, what we're seeing here is a person who might be afraid of taking the risk or taking the necessary leap to change old habits of behavior. Now, Scorpios, when we're thinking about Scorpios are very good at understanding how the personality works. Scorpios are very good at understanding themselves versus others, right? And they're very good at understanding what habits of themselves need to be controlled. Whether or not they take that leap from being so perceptive, especially within themselves, is up to them. So it's up to you to really take this leap and really take this risk, trusting that on the other side of, maybe controlling that personality aspect that's keeping you from a great relationship, you have to trust that the relationship is going to be the relationship that you want to see happen. You have to trust that if you allow a certain aspect of your personality to die because it's no longer serving you, you will still rise above the ashes on the other side of this leap, right? Because, it's one thing to say, Scorpio, you can rise and you can be a phoenix and you can be an eagle. It's another thing to actually allow that transformative experience to happen. Allow that emotionally charged experience to happen and really go through your emotions, right? It's another thing to allow that. And here, this is such a beautiful card to represent what is on the other side of taking this leap, right? Because Scorpios want that perfect relationship. You know, like many signs, like Virgos want that perfect relationship. Scorpios also want that ideal perfect relationship. And if we're finding a Scorpio who's kind of out of their Scorpion stage and wants to really delve into the ego, and they want to really find the path of the soul, we find a Scorpio who wants, you know, that perfect partnership. But this card here is actually asking you to really examine your relationship persona, right? The personality that you bring to the relationship, right? Because you have a personality all on your own, and you have a personality in relation to partners, right? And so here, in order to have this perfect relationship, which really embodies the soul, which really embodies a spiritual basis, right, that transcends earthly needs, right? This is that perfect partnership that Scorpio wants. You have to really re-examine, are you bringing the soul level to the relationship? Are you focused mainly on your earthly needs, or are you focused on the soul needs, right? Because here you can enter into this palace with your lover, right? This is an absolute possibility. But here, you know, we see the sign before you, which is Libra, the we consciousness, and we see the sign after you, which is Sagittarius, and those really philosophical, almost dogmatic ideas about the way relationships should be, and you fall somewhere in between there. And you can balance these two. You can balance how much you're committed to a relationship, right? And you can balance that we consciousness by looking at yourself, by looking at your relationship persona, and really keeping the ideals of spirit, the ideals of maintaining a soul relationship. This is you really practicing your ego, your high vibrational soul relationship. And here, this is beautiful, right? Look what happens when you focus on your relationship persona. This is a future possibility for you. This is the sage. This is the trusting sage that understands everything happens for a reason, that understands there is a higher force guiding your relationship issues, your relationship struggles, right? That there is a possibility for you to really flourish in a relationship when you examine your relationship persona and you really take that risk, that leap, to allow a part of your personality to die, to let go of a part of your personality, so that eventually you are the phoenix, right? You rise above the ashes. This is what's going to happen. A part of your personality dies so that you can soar, right? So that you can be trusting of yourself in a relationship, regaining trust for yourself in a relationship, right? Because here you might have been in a relationship that kind of created a circular pattern for these negative personality characteristics, right? Created this pattern that perpetuated is the good word here, perpetuated these scorpion-like characteristics. And so you know now that you need a different relationship, but in order to have a different relationship, this almost perfect partnership, this soul level partnership, you have to be able to trust yourself, to allow a certain aspect of your personality to go, and forgive yourself for past habits that no longer serve you, and also understand that those past habits are a part of your higher good. They're a part of your highest self, right? You had to go through that so that you can rise above the ashes and really enter into a very soul level understanding of relationships. Do you understand your relationships not based on earthly needs, not based on control, not based on sex only, right? Do you understand the spiritual and soul level needs of a relationship, and trust that you will have that relationship that you desire, because you're willing to take this leap to allow certain habits and behaviors of the past to fall away, right? And understanding that you are not only deserving, but everything happens in divine timing, right? This makes so much sense for a Scorpio to really rise above the old ways and take that emotional leap to continue on, to continue forth, to have this soul level relationship. This is beautiful for Scorpios. So we've discussed Scorpios, we've discussed Scorpio singles and their emotional patterns, right? There are emotional patterns that might affect Scorpios, from having this soul level, rising above the ashes of the past kind of relationship. In order for a Scorpio to do that, they have to really reflect on themselves and their relationship persona and how they show up in relationships, right? And maybe even make that sacrifice of control over how things should be, right? Sacrificing judgments in order for you to then practice being in a partnership, to then practice the sacrifice necessary in a transformative experience of being in a partnership, okay? So I hope that this was helpful. Tune in next week as we move into the next sign in the zodiac, and that will be Sagittarius, right? So see you next Saturday. Bye.